Well, we are quickly approaching 5 minutes after the hour, and it's really fun. We've got East Coast, Tyler, New York. I think you're probably the furthest east, although somebody named Sven just jumped in. That's I know is in New Jersey. So it's good afternoon to those of you that are on the East Coast. Um, I hope those in the Midwest are having a really good lunch, and for those West Coasters, good morning. Today is a really special day, but first, my name is Neil Collins for the folks that we haven't met. I am a Latitudian, which we are part of a company called Latitude, where we are helping, I guess at this point, we're helping to guide the conversation around regenerative real estate. And what we like to do is every month, outside of our regular meetings where we meet about twice a week, we like to open it up once a month to our partners, our collaborators, our co-conspirators, and the provocateurs that are in this space between how do we conceive innovative and transformative projects, how do we play a role in that, and so that's it. If we haven't met, then that's how you're here today. Is you probably raised your hand about a curiosity around a line of work that we have been following the thread for as well, and it has led to an incredible friendship, mentorship, and a deep respect for somebody that has been talking about regenerative real estate far longer than we have, and that is Ross Chapin. And that is just, it's my sincere pleasure to have Ross come on today. We were spitballing some ideas of what do we want to talk about with this group, and what do we want to do a presentation? Do we want to do a talk? And Ross said, you know, I've got some slides that I can put together on enduring principles of his work of pocket neighborhoods. But how it's evolved in our conversation since then, since we're 2.5 blocks away from each other, we've evolved this a little bit faster than what we would normally do over email with a guest, which is now, how do we have a more intimate conversation? And that's what I'm really excited about, is that we can go into just a presentation mode, but I think that we have the ability to do something far richer. And so with that, please be prepared to interact. You know, we would love to see your faces. We'd love to hear your voices. You're welcome to populate the chat box however you'd like. So to get this started off, I just have a request, which is for those of you that are able to go to gallery view, just to turn on Zoom gallery mode, turn on your camera if you're decent, not jumping out of the shower like I usually am getting on Zoom meetings, and maybe just wave or give a high five to your neighbor here. Alyssa, good job. Great job. and say good morning, happy Monday to everybody tuning in from across the country. And with that, Ross, the man of the hour, are you comfortable to take the wheel here?
Yeah, we'll drive this together.
Okay.
This is good. Well, thank you, Neil. I am just pleased to be part of this circle, this conversation. And it's just interesting because we're probably coming along with different levels of knowledge of each other to a degree. I've been in conversation with Neil and Alyssa for some time now, and have really paid attention to the remarkable journey that Latitude has had. I'm watching on Facebook. I'm kind of listening to the information back and forth. And one of the things that I'm picking up on is that you're coming in with not only something of value, but you're coming in with deep values. And values are what join us, what bring us together. in what we can offer the world. So I am prepared to maybe drop into a few things around the part of my work, which is around pocket neighborhoods and what that means. And I'm also really interested in a conversation around what is latitude, and what draws you to it? What draws you together? Where do you want to go with it? What are the gifts that you have to something larger? Where do you fit in? So, I can offer sort of my perspective from where I'm coming from and see where we come together. But I feel that we're part of something much larger. And as we look ahead to the next decade, 2 decades, to the mid-century, what is it the world that we're entering into? How are we going to engage it? How are we going to make a world that we know is truly possible? So I'm interested in these conversations. It's not just how do we sell the next cutest house to the most lovely family that you know about. It's going to be more than that. So maybe I want to put it back on you just for a few minutes. Give me a sense of where you're coming from. What drew you to Latitude? This is a big step to make in your lives, in your careers, in your work. What brings you here? What inspires you? What motivates you? Why do you want to even be here? Why do you want to be here today? So give me a sense of that, and then we'll go from there.
I'll raise my hand.
Thanks, Ashley.
I just joined, so this is very fresh on my mind. But I think one of the biggest draws is the community that they've built, the people and all the different backgrounds that they have. I am coming here feeling a little over my head because I feel like everybody is so just well versed in their specialties. And I feel like I have more of a building science knowledge. And so I'm really excited to learn more about this regenerative aspect of things. And so I'm just here to learn from all of these really smart people.
Wonderful. And before we go a lot further, Neil or Alyssa, give me a time frame on, are we a hard stop at the next top of the hour? Is this, what's your format here?
So here's the fun thing. We can aim for the top of the hour, but we're kind of addicted to this concept called bonus time. So if you have some flexibility, anybody's got flexibility on their time, then we've got some flex on the back end. So that's where we're going to chart our compass towards is top of the hour. But if you have time, Ross, and if anybody wants to stay on, then that's what we like to do.
Yeah, I'm open, and I also want to be respectful. So with that, keep going. Just a little bit of something. It gives me a sense of where you're coming from.
I'll go. Ross, I am Izumi Tanaka. I am in Southern California, as I shared with you earlier. I just want to say quickly that I want to make it really quick. Okay, I can go on and on. But I joined Latitude July of last year. I have been a NA Green agent for 4 years, and Latitude is the best thing that happened to me last year, and it really changed my life. Every time I get on this Zoom meeting with these folks, I get so inspired, I get energized. These people feed me so much, Ross, and it's like I felt like I was trying to do this all by myself, and now I have this tribe of people that share the same values and same passion and dedication. And this is the best group of real estate agents and some other people, not all agents, but I would put that out there. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Go. Hey, Ross, everyone. So my name is Kate Bachner, and I'm not a real estate agent. I'm licensed as a real estate agent, but I'm actually a regenerative material consultant, and I joined Latitude for the community. Actually, um, it's kind of lonely out there, and it's nice to hear about what's happening on the ground with agents who are dealing with the public and what they're actually looking for. So that's why I joined Latitude, and it's been a really wonderful experience.
Thank you.
I could say my name's Nathan. I'm in Portland, Oregon. And I think the best thing about Latitude is all the nice stuff that Izumi says about us every time she shares. But really, I think I'm one person in front of in line in front of Ashley. So I'm pretty new here, and I think I didn't know I was looking for this. I was looking through real estate through a different lens, and I think that the thing that I really get from this community is the opportunity to be part of looking at real estate through quantifying outcomes through more than just a financial lens, and looking at how we can engage with the built environment to make real change in the world, not just financially, not just in terms of green or materials, but really looking at a holistic system and where the built environment fits into that. And it's super inspiring, and it's in alignment with sort of everything else that I've learned and everything else that I've done in my life, but then coming into real estate, which can be so transactional, and so that's what I really get out of it, is this holistic picture of how real estate fits into people's lives and into relationship with the planet and into relationship with the natural environment.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. I also just want to interject real quick that while this is an amazing love fest for Latitude, I want to acknowledge our colleagues and friends outside of the organization, especially some faces that I'm really excited to see here that I've met quite recently. I've Sid in Denver, and Isabel in Austin. And for the other folks that I don't know your name, so we'd also love to hear from anybody that's not within Latitude of what brings you to the call today.
Maybe I go next. My name is Beate Kürmse, and I actually just I met Izumi a while ago, maybe 2 years ago. Izumi, yeah, 2 years ago, and we kind of started both on the real estate journey together. And I've been doing a lot of different things. I'm already out of real estate. I've got a little bit disillusioned. And I've been trying a lot of different things. My 15 minutes of fame might have been, I built the first hempcrete, permitted hempcrete edition here in California. And that's how I got into sustainable building. I was shocked how non-sustainable and chemically involved the building industry is. So I got through LEED, and I just kind of arrived from sustainable to regenerative. And just maybe last year, I think I found my own calling after trying a lot of different things, which is biophilic design. So I'm in the process of building a business with interior design based on our connection to nature, and bringing it at home, and feeling better. And I'm grateful to be here. I don't know much about Latitude, but I'm grateful to be here, and grateful to see those great real estate agents with that mission. That really warms my heart.
I have to tell you guys that Beate has LEED AP, Passive House what I don't know what the exact title is, Passive House certification, and WELL. She just got WELL as well. She's
I tried
He's
many
totally
different things.
qualified.
I'm happy to share why I'm here. So Neil had mentioned I'm not part of Latitude. I'm here visiting and getting to know you guys. I'm Isabel Affinito. I'm a real estate agent in Austin, Texas. And my interest in all of this came sort of recently. I've been in the real estate industry for about a decade now, and finally got to a place where I feel like I have my feet under me enough to be out of sort of survival mode, like where's my next closing coming from? You know, how do I survive in this industry? So I finally got to a place where I was beyond that and started to wonder, how do we do things better as an industry, and what kind of opportunities are we missing? And I was convinced there must be people out there who are already doing this work. And so I feel very, very grateful to have found you guys. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'll go next. I recently met with Neil and was fortunate to connect with him actually through Instagram and through his podcast. That was how I found him. And I'm a sustainably minded realtor in Denver, and that's sort of that's my most recent breadwinning trade. But my newer endeavor revolves around making sustainable building materials accessible to consumers. And so, you know, I'm really working, kind of trying to work outside of the realm of transactional real estate right now, but my husband has taken over our real estate team, and we have a pretty exciting thing going here in Denver. We're just trying to now expand our reach a little bit.
Ross, do you want to maybe move on? Maybe one more? How about that? We'll do one more. Garrett's got his I want to talk face on. Can you hear us, Garrett? No, we can't hear you. Too much snow in Minnesota. Okay, we're going to move on then. How about that?
All right, well, let me give a little bit of my background, if it's okay, and then we'll see where this goes. First of all, are you hearing me clearly enough? Okay, great. I have my training as an architect. I grew up in Minnesota in a wonderful neighborhood north of St. Paul that my family's been there since the 1890s. And my family is still there, the fourth and fifth generation in the same home, in a house with a big wraparound porch opening onto a neighborhood street and a lake. Minnesota, I mean, that's what it is. And what that has given me is a sense of how neighborhoods can have the support for a young child growing up, for support for families, for elders, to have a mix of generations, to see and to experience what it's like to live in a coherent neighborhood. And since when, the last 60 years or so, we have basically taken the world and to try to create affordable housing, perhaps maybe extract income from what's out there. And we've created communities that are not communities, but collections of lots and homes and so forth. So home becomes more and more commodity. And to the point where here we are in a society where the fabric of our culture, of our society is frayed, and people are maybe living behind a house that has lots of curb appeal, but the street out front is rather lonely. It's a place for coming and going rather than for people. and people see their homes as a retreat from the world rather than their own extended part of the world. And I have traveled a lot in this country and beyond, and have seen some of the challenges of that. I've seen that a lot of what's offered promoted through zoning, promoted through real estate, promoted through a lot of the consumer culture are larger and larger homes with more and more amenities. And yet the idea of the American dream is of an independent, standalone thing for mom, dad, and the 2.2 kids. Well, the fact is that the nuclear family represents 25% and decreasing the number of the households in this country. Only 25% are the standard nuclear families, and others are single parent, singles, elders, empty nesters, mixed families, that kind of thing. And the real estate industry, the architecture industry, all of that, the zoning does not really acknowledge that in our world. It's acknowledging bigger, it's acknowledging money for the people that have it. It's basically putting aside people that don't and trying to screen them off from here. So it's a us, them kind of thing. It's disturbing. And I think we're reaching stress points, especially with the pandemic in the last couple of years. We've got people who have been perhaps isolated, and now the loneliness, the separation is got emotional, mental, physical ramifications to it. And I know that we can do better. We can weave something together that brings us together. So let's go back 25 years. I live on Whidbey Island in a small town. It's about 1,000 people. Lovely small town, but traditional zoning that basically says you need to build a house that is family size, connected to the street with a large garage door, no alleys in terms of what's promoted in zoning. It's kind of standard Americana. And I recognized in our little town that there were many, many people who were not served by that. And there were at the same time, people coming to the island, retirees, people coming from in the 90s, Microsoft and some of the places in Seattle with a lot of money, buying up, raising the prices. There were elders on the island. There were single people that didn't have homes, that didn't have a place. Things weren't being built for them. So I took part in a conversation in our community, in our city planning, to create a new zoning code that would give incentives to builders, to homeowners, to people involved in development, to create smaller homes clustered around a garden where parking is not dominant. And so we created this code, and then I teamed up with a developer, became a developer, and we created the 3rd Street cottages. The incentive of the code was that we could build, this is the first code in this country, contemporary code, that says you can build twice as many houses that would otherwise be allowed if they're limited in size, oriented around a shared space, and parking is shielded. So we went ahead and built a cluster of 8 cottages on 4 lots, 2/3 of an acre, and we built them on spec. We were able to get the money together. We built them. We ended up meeting with the public. We ended up selling them ourselves within 2 months. They all sold. And what we didn't expect, what I figured was that there's a niche market. There certainly was. Nobody was even looking at this niche market, and we tapped it, and we realized that there was a very, very strong niche market. Young families, single women especially, empty nesters, they're the ones that purchased it. What we didn't expect was that within 3 months, there were articles in 200 newspapers around the country Sunset Magazine, which is a big regional thing for the West, had listed it as the best new neighborhood of the West. Then they listed it again, and they featured the neighborhood. And then they featured it a third time that year. And then the AIA came in and invited us to take part in the national housing thing. And we got a national award in the AIA, American Institute of Architects. It was in Metropolis and Metropolitan Home and Washington Post, and eventually the New York Times. Sarah Susanka in Her Not So Big House, her second book, she had 10 pages devoted to the project, and that went on to sell 500,000 copies. We tapped into a circuit in the wall. That plug was a circuit that is across the country, and not just the West Coast or East Coast. It's the center, it's the edges, it's large towns, it's urban, it's suburban, it's everything. And we tapped into a latent need for people to have a more visceral, real, meaningful sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of coming together in a home that's just right sized. Not sized for, climbing the ladder or proving something or being impressive, but what is the home that serves your need, but maybe even slightly snug, so that you reach out on your porch, you reach out to others around, and in so doing, community begins to happen. So we went on after this, and I was a co-developer on 7 projects around the Seattle region. But not only that, I've had other builders, developers, landowners reach out. I've designed maybe 250 what I call pocket neighborhoods around the country for other developers, builders, landowners. And I realized that there are different principles and patterns that come with these that make them work. Significantly, privacy and personal space and respect and care are key factors in promoting sociability, community, togetherness. So yes, community, but if it's only community, it can be very claustrophobic. So we need to have a balance of all of these. I wrote a book called Pocket Neighborhoods, Creating Small-Scale Community in a Large-Scale World. It continues after 10 years to be fairly consistent sales. What that means is that it's gone out to housing advocacy groups, community advocacy groups, planning boards, developer groups, realtor groups, all kinds of groups, because I think it tells stories that can be inspiring to others around. And over the last 10 years, there have been hundreds of various different kinds of innovative community-oriented projects that are beginning to happen. This is happening in the context of the standard American dream, the bigger is better, thing. It's got such a flywheel, it rolls. It's going to be hard to stop. It's just what's happening. We're within a culture, an economy that is about consumerism, about more and bigness, and that's going to continue. At the same time, there's these little pockets, there's little niches that are growing where the excitement is, where things, the synergies of people, the empowerment of entrepreneurialism in small scale rooted places. It's related to small business, to food, to land, to community activism at a local scale. I think that's growing, and pocket neighborhoods are part of that. I'm going to pull up a few slides, and I don't think this will take too long, but it'll give a sense of where I'm coming from and the things that matter for me. Then we can come out of that, begin to discuss it. But I also am hoping for this conversation where we begin to take a look at how all this fits into a larger picture. The larger picture of where are we and what time is it? What time is it in the larger scale? Who are we as a culture, and where are we going? And what do we, each of us here, and as this group, what do we have to offer? How do we fit into what else is going on in the world? So I think I can share the screen and start this out. So pocket neighborhoods. This, by the way, is the 3rd Street Cottages, our first pocket neighborhood that we did. It's Neil and Alyssa mentioned that they're 2.5 blocks away. This is in between me and Neil and Alyssa. So it's like 1.5 blocks away from where I live. It all stems to significantly the fact that we're social. We're social creatures. And so when we gather in small groups. We can't help this. I call this the scale of sociability. We love to chat, we tell stories, we reminisce, we argue, we laugh. In small groups, it's spontaneous. It's just what happens. So these people are all gathered at a table, but look at where the conversations are happening. 2 or 3 people to either side, maybe across the table. This is the scale of sociability. Now, there might be a conversation among the whole group. Maybe somebody calls everybody together, raise a toast, sing happy birthday, offer a blessing. It's organized conversation. It's important. It's part of life. But when that moves from there, the small chats happen beyond that without effort. Nobody's calling a conversation. It just happens. So pocket neighborhoods are designed around this fact of human nature. The scale of sociability is the scale of conversation. So pocket neighborhoods are designed with this in mind, in clusters of 4 homes, maybe a maximum of 12, but think about the scale of sociability that we just looked at. If it's smaller than 4, it's fine, but it loses the sense of being a cluster. It lacks the diversity and the activity of a larger group. And when the cluster perhaps get to be beyond 12 or 16 or 20 or 40, it's more like around a park. So neighbors are too far away to be neighborly, and any group decision-making around a shared commons becomes unwieldy. And we can talk about this later with regard to co-housing and what's going on there. But I would suggest that when development gets larger, even with co-housing, the size of the clusters stays small. This is a affordable project in Hilo, Hawaii that I'm designing. And we've got 90 homes, and they are in clusters of 8 to 10 to maybe 12 at maximum, all connected by walkable ways. Cars are close by, but sequestered. So pocket neighborhood, great term in some way, but neighborhood is maybe a little bit confusing. A neighborhood is several hundred houses. Yeah, you might know some of your neighbors, but you really are not going to know all of them. So a neighborhood is known by the landmarks and its character, like maybe the red house next to the park. A pocket neighborhood, the neighbors are on a first name basis. They're the ones that first notice a need or ask for help. Now, a next door neighbor, maybe there's a single woman and she goes off on a vacation. Well, her cat's fine because she's got neighbors to come and feed. Or you've got a single mom and she's just gotten back from shopping, putting her daughter down, and oh my God, I forgot my wallet. And now in a pocket neighborhood, you've got others around who can call on to either go out to the shop or to cover for you. It just happens naturally. Or this fellow I was talking with, he was thinking about getting up and cleaning his gutters, and his next door neighbor came out and said, Joe, no, that's not for you to do. So in a pocket neighborhood, these things just happen in a closely knit neighborhood. Now, typically, this is the pattern that we've got in America. We've got a public street, we've got big garages, we've got a grand foyer, and then we retreat from the world, we retreat to the backyard. There's very little in between. A pocket neighborhood expands the in-between space, the intermediate space between the public and private. This is the place for nodding hellos and chats on the porch with neighbors. These casual conversations could grow into caring relationships, which then grow into a more meaningful sense of community, fostered just by the simple fact that we've got shared space. Children. Most of the time in our world, if Julie goes out beyond the front gate, oh my God, where's my daughter? It's like it's fear, fright time, stranger danger, real danger of being out in the world. But here you go out through the front gate into another world where you can find other playmates, you can find aunties and uncles, grandmas, it's free play. Your environment expands with your developmental environment as you grow older. And if you are an elder or someone who maybe has mobility issues, you're concerned that if you take a spill, is anybody going to be around? In a pocket neighborhood, you've got others around. You feel safer knowing that they're there. So these are pockets of nearby neighbors. But they're more than clusters of cottages, cute cottages around the commons. If you think about it, a pocket neighborhood is, it might be a cottage court, these wonderfully inspiring, alluring Katrina cottages down in the Gulf Coast. It might be a contemporary rural cluster, something quite different. It might be an apartment cluster, like this one in Portland, and where they have space outside their door, but they open in small groups to the shared commons. Historically, they've happened, especially in Northern Europe. These are almshouses that were happening in the 1400s, the 1500s, when people would have their own little places, often for seniors, for people with disabilities, and they come together around, in this case, a little chapel. They also could be houses on a block where the fences are pulled back. This is Davis, California, where the first few houses pulled back fences and they created something of shared commons. And other neighbors came in and said, we'd like to be a part of it. And over time, all of the fences were pulled back and everybody offers something in their own yard to offer for the commons. And then they are all connected through a walkway. Everybody still has their own fee simple lot, and yet they come together in something larger. Or here's a reclaimed alley in Baltimore. It was a no man's land. It was dangerous, and the neighbors came together and they said, we need to change this. And here's what they did. And not only that, but they changed the laws in all of Pennsylvania or Maryland to allow for these kind of things to happen in across the state. Minneapolis, where I grew up, there's an area that was slated for urban renewal in the 60s. The neighbors came together and they preserved their homes. Years later, when I went back to Minnesota and I wanted to go see, because I had a friend that bought one of these, here's what it looked like. The neighbors came together and they convinced the city that instead of a street, they could have a shared commons because they could access the homes by fire truck and by their cars from the backside. And this has become a magical, magical place. And they've basically taken on the street. This is one of the co-housing communities in Denmark, showing that pedestrian lanes are kind of a common area that can be really alive. Or this one in Oakland, where they've taken on a warehouse and they've made it into a community, a commons. And outside of clusters of units are these places to gather. Again, shared commons in small groups. Also in Oakland, the rejuvenation of an historic market where they take the center of it at the top along with all these other uses, and they blew open the roof and they built these apartment units, again with the shared commons with the structure all around them. I was in Portland giving a talk at a conference, and I walked by to see a homeless camp, and I looked at it and I went, oh my God, these are pocket neighborhoods, clusters of tents around a little circle coming together around a commons. Tiny house villages are now all over the country. And so they're showing that pocket neighborhoods are not just for, well-to-do, higher end sensibility, but there's a way in which people come together. And there are several key, this is the sort of the title that Neil pulled us together around. What are the key ideas of pocket neighborhoods? A lot of these we talked about, but I want to highlight them. I think if we name them, then we can own them, we can reuse them. The whole idea of the scale of sociability, the shared commons, common buildings and gardens. Now, it may be something grand like you see in co-housing. It may be like the lower picture where we created a room to gather with a kitchen and have a big extended terrace. It may be just a little fireplace, whatever. It could be a shared tool shed. How many lawnmowers do you need in a close neighborhood? Do you need 8 lawnmowers or a dozen? How about one along with the tools? And while you have that, how about a shared growing area? Grow food, grow community. Porches are such a key element. This is an extension of the home. It's not just a key fumbling porch, not just a way to modulate the facade or articulate the what the house looks like. This is a room, an extension of the home. If it's used, this is the cheapest room in the house. If it's not used, it's the most expensive. So make it used, make it usable, place it right. It's part of the commons. It's part of the home. It's the keystone of how they work together. And as we mentioned, community is great, but too much can be suffocating. So we look at layers of personal space. So between the shared commons, the sidewalk, which is already layered, there are 5 layers between the sidewalk and the door. The low hedge, the fence, the yard, the frame of the porch is a room, and then the door. And within the home, we've got the active rooms facing the active part of the shared space. And then farther back, it's more and more retreated, more and more private, until you've got a little secluded garden. And up above, you've got bedrooms as well. So you've got the gradients of public space and private space that are really key. In America, we have houses that are turned around. There are also houses that are seen only within their own parameters. When houses are come together and seen in concert, then you've got things like nested houses. They acknowledge that the house, each side of the house opens in different ways. And so when you have, in this northern climate, the south side opening with windows, it can open up to the face of the next building and have the entire space used if there is a limited use easement between the two. And so you've got houses that are nested together. So when I get up in the morning, I don't open my curtains and, whoa, good morning. How was your sleep last night? You don't have that. You've got places where you can live closer together, use the land well, respect each other's privacy, come together in community. And here in America, yes, we live by cars, wonderful, but do cars need to be king? Do we need to serve the cars? Or do cars serve us? Cars can be in our space on good terms. And so you've got an alley that might have mailboxes, the common area, gardens. You've got cars that are part of it, but are part of it on in a way that's corralled. Eyes on shared space. If from your kitchen you're looking out to something, you can find if maybe a young child, are they, things going all right, or an elder, or maybe there's somebody coming in and they look like they're lost, or they're whatever. You can go out and say, hi, can I help you? You're looking for someone. That's part of the shared space aspect. So these are 8 key ideas. And I've taken a lot of these and say, we can do these without big development. We can do these in the neighborhoods where we live. That's another set of slides, another set of approaches. But I just want to say that this is not about just doing it as big development or, intensive money development. This can happen wherever we live. So those are the key ideas. This is one aspect of what I do, one aspect of, I think, what I have to offer to making the world a little more coherent and mending the fabric of the world that we live in. So I'm open for any questions, and we can take it from here.
Ross, I have a question. So if I'm on, and probably to the whole group, since there are a lot of real estate agents here. So I'm one of those, women by myself, single women, and I'm looking for to buy something. So how would I find a community like that? How do I go about it to find that?
This is what Latitude is for.
But not everybody has the privilege to know about Latitude. Or I mean, how would I tell somebody, go to Latitude, or how does it work to end up in a beautiful place like that?
Well, this is certainly part of where I think a mission of your group can go. So I think you're going to help answer this yourselves. In my case, and with others, we say, well, go on to Google or go on to a site that has Trulio or Zillow or whatever, and look up pocket neighborhoods, look up community, look up co-housing, those kind of things. Look up my name, that comes up a lot. Look up just general Google pocket neighborhoods, and you'll see them across the country. I've got a list of 100 or so. The cohousing.org has a list of communities that are either in formation or that exist and may have openings. And they're really well organized. And while you're there, they also have a whole piece around what I call the dynamics of community. Now that we're neighbors, how do we get along? How do we deal with the disputes that come up? Noise, pets, whatever, things like that. And they have established, they among many others, but they've established tools for making decisions and resolving disputes without them escalating. They've established ways and norms of how to promote community and respect privacy. So there's a whole piece around that can be developed, but that's not answering your question. That's adding on to what you had.
I wanted to really also, bring that question to the whole group. And I have just one more thing I wanted to share. So I lived until last year, I lived in a very, upscale neighborhood with huge properties. Like we had like 2 acres and we were considered a really small property. And it was beautiful from nature-wise. We had trails and everything. But community-wise, it was just awful because you had so much land around your house. You had to walk 10 minutes to meet your neighbor. And then I just moved into a huge apartment complex, but it's very nicely done with a nice common area where you can barbecue, and there's almost like a little park, between the units. And And that really brought me to the idea, if I want to buy a house again, I don't want to have that usual backyard. I want to find a house where I can replicate that, have a community, because I connected to so many people and I talked to other people. They said, yeah, I have the same experience. And now when I'm looking for a new house, I don't want to, I'd rather stay here than having a new house with a little backyard and missing that community. So it's a real topic. I mean, you know that already, obviously. So it's just being here in that compartment and complex and it's, having that community experience. My whole outlook, what to look for in buying a house has totally changed.
So again, this is going to be a larger piece, and I want to give space for others. Briefly, there's a place on my in my blog that is about creating community where you live. No matter if it might be an apartment complex, it might be a neighborhood anywhere. That's one thing. So how do you make do with what you have? The other piece is to take a look at where are the bones for potential community. When we were looking with my daughter for a house in Seattle, we recognized that there was this one spot that had a little street and it ended at a park. It was a 1 block long, and I entered the street and I could feel like these neighbors were coming together. There was parking in the center. It looked like any street, and yet there was some innate sense of pocket neighborhood. It was a group of a dozen houses on a street that really held their space. And so if you know what to look for, you can begin to search for these, especially if you've got MLS listings and you can get into that. You can look at neighborhoods and find out what's there and draw them out. But it's not just about neighborhood, it's also about people. So you may have just a wonderful neighborhood that looks like a pocket neighborhood, but doesn't function that way because you don't have people that want to be nearby neighbors. So who's next? I'm seeing Tyler and I'm seeing Garrett. Garrett's in my screen, the one with his yellow hand up saying, hey, hey, hey. Why don't you start in?
Yeah, can you hear me this time? Oh, great. Well, first off, thank you, Ross. It is such a pleasure to hear your presentation on pocket neighborhoods and to just meet you. So for a little context, whether you were directly involved or not, I used to live in a community that definitely pulled from your principles. It was a 30-unit mixed income co-housing community on a 30-acre land trust built around 2 courtyards, and it was really beautiful. And a big part of me getting my real estate license and going into this industry is to try to. I've tasted the good life, and I wanna create more of that in this world. So, but all that said, there is a question, and that is. The structure of the community I lived in was, once again, a co-housing community, mixed income, and it was part of a land trust. So there was a limited equity part of when you sold your house. And I'm just wondering, from like the structural, like financing piece of it, if you found through your work with all these pocket neighborhoods, if you found different a kind of a preferred path or an easier path to develop these communities as far as putting together the financing and the structure and things to avoid, or just kind of what that looks like from your experience.
Well, if you've been a part of the co-housing world, if you want the way in which a lot of involvement, go co-housing, gather all the people, let them become, find the land, find the architect, find the developer, find the financing, bring everybody along as a group through that training, and then go through the year of building it and making the minor choices. Holy smokes, a lot of people burn out. For the people that make it, it's fantastic. For the people that it really works for, it's fantastic. But I think for community to be really broadly established, the hoops to jump toward it need to be lower. They need to be a wider spectrum. In fact, I'd take a look at the spectrum of community. I think there's a very broad spectrum. One is being in a walkable neighborhood that is mixed use and has a place for everyone in the neighborhood. And it might be your own little apartment that you go out and you see people in the park, at the cafe, at the places like that. It might be a neighborhood that's more traditional with porches on a street, single family, maybe they're apartments, backyard cottages, live-aboves, duplexes, whatever, but it's in a naturally sociable neighborhood. That's probably going to be the most common and what we should be promoting. Then there's more intentional neighboring, the pocket neighborhoods, and then there's co-housing, which is more, intentional, everybody come together. In the spectrum, in my sensibility, there's a place that has support for people who have extra needs, foster kids, people with disabilities, elders. Do we warehouse them in institutional, economic, we just take care of them? In other words, get them out of your sight so you can get on with your life? Or do we weave the members of our family and our friends and our community and our, within our own lives? Are there places where people with extra needs can be part of our community? So again, that's going off on a little tangent, but it's related, Garrett. Say your question again, refocus me, because I think I've got what you're saying, but I want to try to get back to your core question.
Yeah, so sorry, it's a little bit of a sloppy question, but basically I guess what I'm asking is from your experience on the development side. As you mentioned, there are so many aspirations towards living in community, creating intentional communities, creating co-housing communities, and there are so few that actually exist because of the barriers and challenges to getting them to fruition. So from your experience, what have you found as to be some of the best structures, best approaches to getting these projects to fruition?
Okay. Well, that's going to be also a changing answer with time. When we were first doing our projects, when I first got into our projects, we could buy a lot for $40,000. The same lot right now is $300,000. Construction was $100 and change, $120 a square foot. Right now it's 300 and more around here. Maybe it's different where you are. So we've got to be looking at how does affordability happen, and how do you have mixed affordability or mixed levels of income. And some of that is by design, having the live above the garage or a duplex within a building. Some of it's going to be bringing in a community land trust. And so you've got support from a community land trust base for it to happen. It might be a housing cooperative, along with market rate. Approaches, on one spectrum, I talked about something that is, co-housing. On the other hand, I've worked often as a developer and with developers where you've got a small team with a vision, pulling it together, doing the challenging work that we're trained in. We don't need to pull all of our buyers through that. But at some point, we bring them in and we begin to engage them, and community can happen. And it's going to be easier for them when that hard work is done. And then what we can do is offer that. At the same time, there might be, if you know your community, you're going to look at opportunities that exist. Maybe there's 2 or 3 properties that are together, and there might be buildings that are there, and you recognize that the zoning has changed in town and that you can take those 3 houses and you can make duplexes, build backyard cottages. And if you've got the vision, and if you're skilled with real estate, if you're skilled with development, with financing, you can begin to put together a small incremental development package. You can attract local impact investment from your local community, from the people in your world. And you can make something really special and then put that out to the world. And in your world, you can put this out, and what's crazy is that you've got no competition. Your competition is not going to be the private, bigger, consumptive, impressive, curb appeal, house that's on the real estate magazines. It's going to be a niche that probably significantly, you're the only one there. And what you need to do is to communicate that and not sell it, but educate it, share it, tell what it's about, differentiate, help people find the fit, help people reach out and to draw people in where for them, what is really resonating is community, is more livable spaces, is more supportive spaces. And I think as a realty group, you can help each other come together and message. And I really, really feel that the best way to sell is to not sell. The best way is to get involved in your community, to educate, to share, to tell stories, to be inspiring. And people will come. And you're not looking for every buyer, everybody that comes along. In fact, you definitely are not. Because if they move in, they're not going to be the ones that are going to tell the story that you want. They're going to ones that are going to feel, oh, it's claustrophobic. I don't have my place for my big F-150 with all of my snowmobiles and my gear and this and that. So, okay, I'm not watching the chats here. Sorry.
I have a question, Ross, about,
yeah.
Hi. I had a question about the logistics of that shared space and how it gets maintained. So if we were to develop one of these on spec, how do you suggest managing that? Is it through HOA rules and dues, or do the neighbors cooperate on it? Like, how does that work, keeping the common area looking good and well maintained?
Yep. Well, first of all, HOAs, if they're too large, if they're too top-down managed, people are either not going to be involved or they're going to resist it. And if something goes wrong, you're going to call the property manager, or you're going to call the police, or you're going to sue. And that's why HOAs and lawsuits are kind of like hand in glove. Okay, when the HOAs are small scale, where people come together and they are not under the dark cloud of a set of rules, but they're in a circle sharing agreements. They're modifying agreements. There are going to be some things that must be given because you're part of, say, a condominium or an HOA, and these are state rules. Fine. Make those given rules as lean as possible, as few as possible. But then within the group that comes together, have those elaborate more, and they can change at a yearly meeting or change over time. And they are, again, agreements, not rules. And so some of the basis of a community, rather than say a property. I mean, they do have homeowners associations. If they do have shared ground, they probably do. There needs to be a way in which they come together. I think if the norms, the day-to-day norms of living include maybe a monthly Saturday where you spend Saturday morning working together and doing some work projects or coming together around the garden or weeding or whatever. When you come together and you are doing some weeding or pruning a tree or working in the garden, and later in the week, it might be, I'm so into my music, I don't even realize that it's 10 at night and it's too loud. And Isabel, you're coming to me and said, hey, Ross, I gotta get up and get to work early, or my kids staying away. You can reach out to me and I go, oh, I didn't realize, I'm sorry, rather than calling up the property manager. So if you can take the decisions to the lowest level possible, I think you're better off.
So it sounds like your recommendation, Ross, would be not having some outside management company necessarily, but having the developer hands over the property with very few rules, whatever, you know, are absolutely necessary legally to hand over the property. And then you let the owners make their decisions about how they want to manage it going forward.
Yes. And I don't see it as a handing it over in black and white. What I try to do is to encourage a development group is to bring in a community facilitator early along, and they start to establish what is a community, what are the aspects of it, put together a provisional thing. When people begin to come on board, enroll them, get them involved, and once they begin to get established, have this community person be a facilitator to establish the how to run a meeting with respect, with care, with listening, with getting decisions done. How do you make decisions, big and small, at what level? And then how do you resolve disputes? And this communities person can be, first of all, on the as a line item in the budget, but they're carried on maybe for a year to establish the culture of community of any group. And it may be that there's we're going to have a maintenance service come in to do the heavy lifting, or the once a year thing, or it might be that if you're helping move this forward, if this small group, yes, self-managed, but if they can't do it, just say, look, there's a level of which there will be a management company coming in to maintain it. But I think if you can empower the neighbors and help them establish the culture of neighborliness, the culture of community, then I think you're better off. Then you've got this transition that is a soft transition, and you're helping them move. Then you become, instead of a developer, you become a founder.
Excellent. That was helpful. Thank you.
Can I just share a comment on that, Ross?
Yeah.
I think that of all the years Latitude and us have been gathering and all the real estate groups we've been involved in, I don't think anybody has ever actually called a developer a founder. And like the simple shift in language and how we conceive of our orientation in the world and the words that we use, I think is very important. So I just really, that's like an aha moment for me.
You know, I do think the terms we use, the names we use, the way we speak with one another. When I realized this piece around agreements, I put together we did the Fifth Street Commons. It was a pretty rundown apartment complex. And Deborah and I, my wife and I, along with another couple, we reached out and we made an offer, and to buy this and to transform it. It's on, you can go onto the website. When we gathered with the first group of people, that after everybody finally bought and came together, we said, well, here's a set of rules that we're suggesting. And the first person that spoke was saying, I object. God, this is off to a great start. He said, we don't need rules, we need agreements. Yes, of course. So the names that we use and how we respect and relate with one another, I think speaks a lot about our humanness and a lot about our who we are as empowered, vulnerable human beings coming together. which ties into what are we doing in this built world as realtors, as developers, as architects. I think we're helping people come home. We're helping people find home. And when they find home, this is a place where they feel safe. And when you feel safe, your amygdala response, your fight-flight response in this crazy world that we're in can calm down, and you begin to find a calm center. You begin to find out, who is it that's here? What is it that's mine to tend, mine to cultivate, mine to, what's my gift? And if the world that we're living in is transactional, if it's all about, you know, how we can ramp up the best, biggest, quickest sale, and then you get in, you go, my God, I got the house, and it cost me 30 years of mortgage that I can barely afford now. That's a lot of stress. And it may be that this is the transactional world. This is the transactional world that we live in. But what I'm putting forward as a member of this field of creating this built environment is that we're helping people come home, really essentially. Find a sense of home and a sense of self and a sense of belonging. And when we have that, then I think we can serve one another better. We can be served better. Our needs, we can be vulnerable. And when we are truly vulnerable, we can be strong. We can reach out, we can come together. And don't you know that we need it?
Ross, that was beautifully poetic. I want to acknowledge Tyler's hand is up as well.
Tyler from early along, hand up here.
You have time, Ross, for another question?
Yeah.
First, I'm new to Latitude. It's grateful I found this. This looks amazing. Try and connect with you guys. I've got a very practical question, Ross. We're sort of market rate multifamily urban infill developers in Madison, Wisconsin, fairly high land cost. We're looking for affordable housing, creative affordable housing solutions that aren't tax credit, you know, multifamily deals. And so cottage clusters kind of showed up on our radar as a potential affordable housing solution. On the one hand, I can see how the smaller, you know, size of the units lends itself to affordability. On the other hand, the density seems pretty low, you know, given the land underneath. I'm wondering if there's a sweet spot in terms of how you bring affordability to the cottage cluster concept. Is it a, you know, townhouse? Is it a single family home? Is it a multi-family cluster? Where is that sweet spot?
That's a good question. Well, I think, first of all, pocket neighborhoods, the size of the home matters less than the size of the community. So that said, we've done some, and the costs, you know, you begin to get larger homes, and which is great, but it gets a certain milieu of people that can afford that. And so if you can bring in missing middle, a place for a little apartment unit or a duplex or something like that, I think that would help. From a design point of view, if we can begin to take a look at design construction that might be more modular, that might be more standardized, yet rich in some aspects of it, that's another way. I think if you really want to establish affordability in the world that we're in today, I think we need to begin to think about tying in with community land trusts and housing trusts, at least for part of the development, so that it's not just fully market driven. If you can deliver, let me tell you that it's difficult to deliver affordability just in the market sold homes. I've been working on it for most of my career, and I'm beginning to look at community land trusts, and housing cooperatives is another approach to it. I think having a range of home sizes from 300 square feet to 1,500 or 1,800 square feet. The full range is one way to go, because there are going to be some people that need and can afford something larger naturally, and others who can afford the 550 square foot, live above the garage spot. So there's a whole other conversation, a whole other workshop. They'd be happy to explore this further with you and show you examples as well.
Thanks, Russ. I'll look for that.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We've got we're definitely in bonus time, so just want to appreciate, Russ, your generosity of time. Kenny, I'm not seeing double of you anymore, which is it's great to see you. Do we have time, Russ, for one more?
Sure. Oh no, I'm good for another 15 minutes or so, 10 minutes.
Great, Russ. I just wanted to look. I might have, opportunities in the city, big cities is difficult. I'm in Los Angeles, where you're watching things get built bigger, not better, and everybody's house his garage has its own house. But I just wanted to ask you your experience, either with government, with politically, with the building departments. Is it best to go to these developers, however to look at that, or even for Latitude, or even as a local agent, to set up, some type of advisory committee, so when you're approaching some of these people, that we have some, we look like, there's a very broad spectrum of know-how there. So I don't know if you could address that at all. How you've been.
Well, I want to come back to Latitude. You're framing this as your change agents. And so a lot of that is, what is your skill level and where is your acupuncture point to make a difference? It might be that you have some sensibility around zoning and policy and can work at that level. And so you could take a look at model codes across the country. You can take a look at groups that are promoting missing middle housing. You can take a look at smart growth and the Congress for the New Urbanism work, and work at some of the larger scale policy level. It might be that you're coming in and you've got, maybe you are a small scale incremental developer, and you can come together with a vision, and that you're coming to a city. So there are so many planners at the city that are visionary themselves. It's just they're living with this long wake of zoning laws and rules, and they want to change them, and they're looking for you. They're saying, we need somebody to help carry, or to maybe to demonstrate a new code that they're working on, or an aspect of a code that has not been utilized much. They're looking for people. It may be that you are someone in a community and you're seeing places that have potential that aren't being brought out. It might be a rundown corner building or something, and you say, how about, what if, can you imagine? And you can put together a package, and given the skills, the knowledge that you have, you can begin to do that. And once you do that and find successes, and I'd say find successes at the smallest level possible in some ways, that's one way to change. When you get the success, then tell the story, communicate the story, sing the story, and then gather people together up and down the block. I think the best way to change is through inspiration. So from policy level to doing small projects, to just doing small shifts in your neighborhood, to gathering, maybe it's as groups, as somebody in your own community, maybe it's gathering other realtors together and say, hey, let's do this something together. Maybe you're going to create some kind of a community making on the spot project, next weekend. take over parking spots and create a little pop-up park. I don't know, something.
Ross, you are truly a community inspirer. I don't know any better words, but I want to acknowledge your time here, and I want to just thank everybody for also coming. I didn't even realize that my mom was on the call, which is really fun. Great to have someone that maybe our biggest fan, if no one else was going to show up. But thank you, Ross. This was, for me, such a soulful presentation, and that comes across in your work. And I think everybody else is seeing that as well. So for anybody that does want to stay on, you're welcome to. We might not have Ross, but I just want to thank you for your time, and thank you for everybody for showing up.
Thank you, Neil, for putting this together.
Yeah. Oh, it is not us. It is really we're the beneficiaries of Ross's time and expertise and years of doing this, and we just it is so rewarding to actually walk around the environment in which I think imprinted in Ross's work. And so for us, the ability to have Ross on this call right now and to kind of live and breathe the same air that he's in, to understand the environment of how pocket neighborhoods came about. I can tell you that I've resonated on this on a whole different level. And even so much personally, I'll give you this little nugget of how we ended up on this small island with Ross. Is that Ross said a quote to me that I'll never forget, that he ended up here because he wanted to choose a life and not work, not so much for work. And that's pretty powerful to think that a young aspiring architect can move to a place that's not the center of an urban area, and then go on to make an impact around the country and around the world.
I think the way I said that I was maybe not totally consciously, but at one point it was consciously, I was pursuing a life, not pursuing a career.
That is, yes.
I could have chosen, to really go after my career, but I'd need to live in, Minneapolis, or I lived in San Francisco or Berkeley or New York or somewhere like that, where it was happening. Here I was, on this little island, in this town of 1,000 people. And because for me, what was important is that I really wanted to be around people that would have values that I feel I could align with, and people were moving and listening toward something that is more sustainable and resilient future, a place where I am really working. What is the land that is beneath me, and how do I come into relationship with that? And if I'm in a busy world, you're really going after career stuff, am I going to be paying attention to things that are not speaking loudly, like the land beneath my feet, or ways in which we come together, not in work ways, but in ways of the ceremonies and rituals of life, of raising children, of being around an elder and hearing what their needs are. If I'm too busy at in my work career, am I going to be paying attention? So what happened, surprisingly, was that I did the work I loved, and I let go of everything that I didn't love. And what happened was that people were paying attention to what I was doing because they loved it. Well, they loved it because I loved it. And then they want to have me engaged. So I get engaged. And of course, I'm engaged in it because it's something I love. And so over time, that is what grows. And so I didn't come at what I'm doing linearly at all.
So how about everybody, maybe we can just say thank you. You can go on mute and give Ross a thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ross.
Thank you, Ross.
Appreciate everyone hanging in there. So, and I've got another 4 minutes if you've got anything else. Otherwise, I'm going to be heading out.
Ross, Kenny, one quick question. I mean, there's a lot of like pocket neighborhoods here, kind of like, you know, just a number of clusters of beautiful homes that are not neighborhoods, but a bunch of people, all these older homes, and all we see happening is they're getting knocked down and turned into big boxes. Has anybody been able to approach and buy up a dozen of those homes or something and then convert it into a pocket neighborhood at all? Because
I've seen that happen. I think it can be done. How you find those, I mean, this is your world. I think you begin to search out these hidden treasures and begin to put together packages of adjacent properties. If you can have something a little larger, I think you can do something significantly more impact.
have any of these been tied in with schools or anything, or just a community center, or just create a community building for multiple use for farmers?
No, that's a great idea. In my way back when I was doing work in architecture school, and I worked with imagining and designing schools that are part of communities, and communities where education is lifelong, and that where you take forgotten remnants of cities that are rusted out, and you begin to breathe life into them, and you begin to make them life-giving. So that's certainly possible. In my own work, I've not had anything quite like that. I have designed, I'm working on a community, and a really important factor of that, preserving significant amount of land and creating community. It's a large piece, was creating a green building school, where the whole idea of the retiring generation of builders can share their knowledge to younger people, becoming brought back in through different kinds of apprenticeship and education right within the community. And their practice of building is not only building and learning, but providing affordable homes to the community itself. That's another piece. And then weaving in maker spaces along with that to really spark small-scale entrepreneurial, community supportive workplaces, where work is not, you go away to work. No, work is part of a place that you can walk to and see people that are actually working.
Okay, Ross.
Yeah.
We're going to let you go here.
It's time.
It is time.
Well, it's a real pleasure, and I look forward. I'm hoping I can continue the conversation with you all.
Oh, we'd love that. We would love that.
Good.
Okay. Well, take care, everybody. Thanks again for joining. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. I got a lot of notes here. So this is a great way to start the week.